Hotep, Alafia, Kamusta. Welcome to the Mind of Ro page. I am Oba Draguna, Oguna Salamio. So today I'm going to make a video on how I'm offended. No, I'm not really offended, but everybody else in the world seems to be really offended these days. And the reason why they're acting offended is majority of the masses want to avoid the truth. So that's what my video is going to be on today. The last video I made was on, are the Egyptian gods aliens? And the reason why I want to make a video on that is because it seems to be pretty popular of people arguing on whether they're gods or aliens. So if you like that kind of stuff, go ahead and check out my YouTube or subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mind of Ro. I also have a TikTok, an Instagram, and a Twitter at Mind of Ro. And I also have a Facebook business page at The Mind of Ro, where I do readings at. So if you would like to get a reading done, go ahead and message me or shoot me a comment and set an appointment up. So let's talk about I'm offended, okay? So the whole entire world right now seems to be offended by everything. Everybody got really sensitive, and I know a lot of people are talking about this. So I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about what it's really doing to people and really where it really came from. So the whole I'm offended movement is really it's turned into a fallacy and a gaslighting technique, basically called an ad hominem, meaning to attack the person rather than the position. So I made another video on gaslighting and fallacies. Today I'm going to touch base again on fallacies. And the reason why I'm going to talk about that is because we need to be mindful of when we are pulling fallacies out of our pockets as a way to argue with somebody when it's really not a great argument. We need to be mindful of this because the media has turned us into a bunch of narcissistic people. Society has turned into a bunch of narcissists, and it's unacceptable. And we need to wake up out of it. So the best way to wake up out of it is to be mindful of when we do it ourselves. Because a lot of these people who do it on the internet or doing it at home with their loved ones, it's toxic. It's not good for us. It's not good for anybody. So let's talk about why always acting like I'm offended is considered really toxic. The reason why is because people are using it as a reason to not listen to somebody who's speaking to them, whether you're on the internet, whether you're at home, wherever you're at. I notice people do it all over the internet, and it's definitely toxic to do it at home. Why? Because it's an excuse to argue and turn it into your argument into an irrelevant conclusion. So that's another word for a fallacy. It's called irrelevant conclusion, which means I'm talking to you and you act offended, and I'm telling you one thing and you're telling me something else that's irrelevant to what I'm saying because you don't want to listen to what I'm saying because you're too busy defending your story when I'm not even talking about that. This happens all the time. It's called irrelevant conclusion, or in other words, the straw man fallacy, where basically someone is trying to have a conversation and one person is talking about one thing and the other person keeps saying, no, you're really talking about this, and this is what you're really offended about. Another person's like, that's not what I'm talking about. And they're basically being attacked for something they're not even talking about, because again, we're going to go back to the fact that the person who is offended is trying to defend their offense when the person they're speaking to isn't even talking about that, which is a straw man fallacy. It's because basically it's somebody who's trying to beat a straw man that doesn't even exist in a conversation. What it basically is failing to address the position and failing to do your homework on the subject. And this has been going on way before, obviously, all this crap became really popular, because years ago, I started studying the history of religion about 10, 15 years ago, and that's when I discovered the whole concept of I'm offended, therefore I'm just going to act like anything you say is irrelevant because I refuse to do my homework on the subject, so I'm just going to act offended by it, and that therefore it just makes you lose. It doesn't work that way. Either you know the facts or you don't. It also goes to the fact that when we act too offended by something, we're not able to pay attention to what somebody says, which means we are in denial, which is another fallacy or a psychological issue called denialism. Denialism is basically denying reality because it makes us uncomfortable. or it also goes against our current belief, and it also causes us to deny or any validation on any historical event or historical fact that could be proven. This also goes to the whole concept of being not only denial, but oh God, now I'm having a brain fart. I can't remember what it's called now. Watch, I'm going to remember the word I'm thinking of as soon as I'm done with the video. It's going to be annoying. But anyways, denialism is basically when someone's telling you something and you want to avoid the subject and keep beating around the bush or talk about something else that's kind of around the subject, but that's not really on the subject. And when someone tries to force you to get on the subject, you want to act offended by it. Okay, so this is something that I realize that a lot of people act offended and are not really willing to listen, is because a lot of us foolishly, I've done it, I'm sure everybody who's watching this has done it sometime in their life. So let's not do exactly what I just mentioned and act in denial and act like we're perfect and we've never done this. A lot of us, if we're not healing our emotions and our wounds and our trauma in our life, we tend to think our feelings identify everything. And that's the reason why we live in denial, is we got to get out of that. We can't think, well, it's true because I feel like it's true, or I feel like this, therefore you're wrong. That doesn't validate the argument or the position the other person is saying. We can't use our feelings and our offense as an excuse to not listen when somebody else is speaking to us. If we want to be heard, we need to be able to be willing to hear the other person as well. So, first of all, why is everybody all of a sudden acting offended in society right now? Number one, the media. Everyone's acting offended because the media told you to act offended. The media wants to touch base on all these stories and all these activists acting on this and this and that. So therefore, if the media tells you to be offended by it, then you must need to be offended by it, right? Because the media has never told you anything wrong before, and the media never twists the truth ever. So therefore, if the media tells you to be offended or angry, it must mean you need to be angry, right? It must mean you need to be offended by it because they told you to be offended by it. Number two, the reason why a lot of people act offended these days is because everybody else is offended. Which goes to another fallacy called appeal to authority. This is a fallacy saying, oh, well, if that person said it and they have this title, or they're the president, or they're somebody on the news, then it must be right. I'm sorry, but somebody's authority and title doesn't automatically make somebody right. It doesn't work that way, which goes to my other reasoning on why everyone's offended, which is another fallacy. It's called argumentation theory, which is basically appeal to the people. What that means is, well, it must be right if the crowd is going there. Well, everybody else is going there. They must be right. It's popular demand. Everybody else is watching this, or everybody else believes this. Well, everybody else is out in the street and arguing and holding signs up for this. So it must be right, right? Well, I don't want to sound like your mother or anything like that, but there's something my father used to tell me all the time growing up. He used to always ask me, if everybody else jumped off the bridge, would you? Clearly, a lot of people would, because everybody else is doing it, right? So let's go back to our childhood. Our parents used to tell us this all the time growing up. Just because your friends and everybody else you hang out with jumps off the bridge doesn't mean you need to jump off the bridge too. Let's grow up out of that. It's time to grow up. If you're watching this, chances are you're not a child anymore. This is childlike thinking, to think that we got to follow the crowd, or friends are doing it, we must do it, or the sexy lady on TV said it, so I must listen to her, or that guy's hot and he agrees to it, so I must follow him because, well, he's hot. You know what I'm saying? This is ignorant. We need to grow up out of that. This is immature. Our parents told us this all growing up. Don't jump off the bridge because everybody else jumps off the bridge. This is the concept of being sheeple. I know a lot of people want to get offended when I say sheeple, but basically what it is a story of a bunch of people who act like sheep because everybody else is going that way, so they follow everybody else. It's the inability to think for yourself. So now that I broke down a bunch of fallacies on why I'm offended, is basically covering a whole bunch of argumentative fallacies, which is very inaccurate. let's talk about stopping it. Well, how do we stop doing this? If we are a habitual person who keeps habitually acting offended every time our feelings are hurt, every single time we trigger because we haven't dealt with our trauma, so somebody might trigger us. If you're not sure what a trigger is when you act emotionally out of control because somebody hit a soft spot in you that reminds you of something that hurt you in the past and you haven't healed from it then. That's called a trigger, and that's why it shows that majority of society are full of broken people and have not healed from trauma. This is why it's so easy for people to act this way, because they're traumatized. Majority of society are a bunch of unhealed people who are traumatized, so they get triggered easily into the I'm offended mode. So let's be mindful of that and let's get out of it. The number one way to stop playing defense all the time is to ask yourself some of these questions. Number one, are you really offended, or were you just activated by the media? How do you know this answer? Ask yourself, did you start getting emotionally bothered when everybody else was talking about it online, and when it was mentioned all over the news, and when it started being popular all over the newspapers and the magazines? Or were you already on this subject, or were you already acting like being an activist way before this ever happened? Chances are, if you were already on this subject way before it happened, chances are you're not offended right now because you've been doing your homework and you're on top of it, and you've been on top of it before it even became popular. Therefore, you could see past the illusion. If you really think about that question, you notice, damn, I did start getting offended when everybody else is doing it. Then we're going back to appeal to authority and appeal to the people. Subject, I just mentioned this earlier. So really ask yourself, when you started to feel offended all the time, was it because you were actually actively an activist against that subject before it became popular in the media? Or did you just get activated by the media? Therefore, you're offended because the media told you to be offended. Number two is another question. What do you think your defense is distracting you from? We know that the news doesn't tell the truth. And if you don't know that the news doesn't tell you the truth, you got some homework to do, because clearly they have a major record on not telling all the truth. Maybe if you're only in America and only talk to Americans, maybe you don't get it. But a lot of other countries and people in other countries and people who do their homework know that the media and the news doesn't tell the truth. So therefore, if you were activated by the media, then ask yourself, why? Why were you acted by the media? Why was the masses activated so emotionally by the media? What are they distracting you from? What are they getting out of it? Oh, they don't get anything out of it. They don't make a bunch of money off things. They don't get paid off. They do it for free. Of course they're getting something out of it. Everybody who's making money on the media is getting something out of it. I'm getting something out of it for being on YouTube, okay? Think about that. We gotta stop giving people passes. Oh, well, no, they don't have any bad intentions. They're perfectly great people, because all politicians have a great history of being great people. Come on, man. Seriously. Think about that. Why is it, if they wanted to be distracting you, why? Honestly, ask yourself why. Don't just give up. This is what I have a problem with the masses. They don't want to think about things. They're like, oh, dang, I got to think about that. Now I got to do my homework. Damn. But screw that. I'm just going to give up now and not do that. This is why the masses are full of people who are offended, and by people who are sheeple, and people who are activated by the media, because they don't want to take the time to look things up. Because as soon as somebody asks them something like why, like for example now, I'm asking you, why do you think they're distracting you? Well, I don't want to think about that. Well, that's the problem. People don't want to think. That's the problem. Number three, what are you avoiding? If you're in a relationship and your partner's having a conversation with you and you act offended throughout the whole entire conversation, what are you avoiding? How would you feel if your partner did that to you? How would you feel if you're having a conversation with your partner and explaining your emotions and your feelings and how they did this to you and how they need to stop acting like this all the time, and the only response they give you is, I'm offended. Well, I'm offended. I'm offended that you're offended. How is that going to solve anything? We can't control other people. We can only control ourselves. We can only control the way we respond to other people. That's the only control we have. Therefore, we need to take accountability for that. If we are trying to avoid something when someone's having a conversation with us, then we need to own that. We need to grow up and we need to own it. Because that's for the reason why we have relationship problems, why we get into really bad arguments with people back and forth, and we're in toxic relationships, because we want to avoid the truth that's trying to be shared with us. If we don't stop doing that, we're going to keep having crappy relationships, toxic relationships, constant arguments and misunderstandings with people, because we want to avoid the truth. We're going to put our pride down. I mean, you can live with your pride, then you need to own up to the fact that if you want to live with your pride, then you're going to have a toxic life. You're going to have toxic relationships. You're going to have a toxic lifestyle, toxic people around you. We need to own up to that. So if you're offended all the time, then ask yourself, what are you avoiding? Honestly, is it a religious truth you don't want to avoid? You don't want to find out that something really didn't happen when you thought it did, and you don't want to grow out of that? Is it the fact that maybe someone's cheating on you and you don't want to admit it because you don't want to make the moves that you need to make to be with somebody healthier who's going to treat you better? What are you avoiding? Did you lie and someone's telling you to be accountable and you want to keep avoiding it? I mean, honestly, what are you really avoiding? That's the question number 3. Number 4, know that an emotional state of mind is not a rational mind. This is psychology 101. This is basic psychology. So this is an actual fact. If something happened traumatic and somebody calls the cops, and the person who calls the cops is screaming and yelling, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Do you know what the people do on the phone when they answer the phone to someone who's panicking on the phone? They tell you to hand the phone to someone who's calm, who they could speak to. Why? Because the calm person is rational. The calm person is going to be able to save the person that is in danger. So let me repeat, an emotional mind and a fearful mind is not a rational mind. Therefore, if you are acting offended and you are scared, fearful to hear the truth, you're not having a rational mind. Therefore, people who are emotional, irrational, and fearful are the easiest to manipulate. People who are fearful, people who are basically avoiding subjects by acting offended are it's being fear-based is basically what that is. People who are scared are the easiest to manipulate. Whether it's the elite manipulating you, or whether it's a controlling person in your life who's trying to manipulate you, whether it's a personal relationship or a romantic relationship, a manager at your job, a person you're doing business with, or the elite or the government. If you're an emotional wreck and you are fearful and scared of your own shadow and scared of everything, you are the easiest to manipulate. That's why we need to get out of that and stop being fearful and stop letting the media convince us to be scared of everything. My next point is, you got to think for yourself. I mean, this is some basic stuff right here. Number 5 is think for yourself. The way you stop acting offended by everything all the time is we gotta think for ourselves and stop allowing others to tell us how to feel. We gotta stop allowing the media and the TV and the people we hang out with and our family, sadly to say, even our family does this. Yes. Our family, the crowd, popular demand, we need to stop allowing them to tell us how to feel. Leaders, the reason why they're leaders is because they don't let people dictate their feelings. Do you think Martin Luther King gave a damn what everybody thought? That's why he's a leader. Do you think Malcolm X gave a damn what everybody thought? No. He talked against the crowd. Why? Because he was a leader. Do you know how many people probably wanted to stop them? Clearly, obviously, we know how everything ended. But seriously, people who are leaders do not get manipulated and they don't get told what to think. They don't get pushed into the crowd to go act like everybody else because they're leaders. So we gotta start thinking for ourselves. And the reason why we're so easy to manipulate is because it's so easy for people to tell us how we feel. This is society. This isn't even just in the US. This is in the whole entire planet. People are so easily pushed with the crowd because they want to be told what to do. They can't think for themselves. Because like I'm going to say earlier, people would rather not think than think. Oh, I got to think about that. I got to think about reevaluating my thoughts. Yes, you do. If you want to be a free person and you want to be a leader and you want to live your higher purpose and you want to live the best life that you could live, if you want to be the best version of yourself, yes, you need to. You need to think for yourself. Because everybody else clearly doesn't know what they want because everyone's running around like a bunch of chickens with their heads cut off, freaking out and panicking, and the leaders and the calm people are not. Why? Because they're leaders and they're not being told what to think. That's why. Question everything. Question everything. Leaders question everything. So, honestly, that's all I have to say today. I know I was totally ranting just now, but this needs to be said. Because to be honest, I'm tired of hearing people act like they're offended because they don't want to hear the truth. I'm tired of it. And the reason why this world is a mess and the reason why the elites get away from crap is because they use the masses by telling them to be offended by the truth. You think the elites are down here trying to shut us up? No, they convince the masses to shut us up. They're not on TV. They're behind the scenes. So don't work for the elites and try to shut everybody else up because you were activated by the media. And now all of a sudden you're an activist because the media told you to act against something when you weren't even aware of it at all the day before it came on the TV. Let's think about this kind of stuff, okay? Let's be more mindful of that. We gotta ask, why is there so much crap going on? And why is it so easy for this crap to happen? Because the masses agrees with it. That's why. That's why. If the masses didn't agree with it, if they didn't fall for the crap, we wouldn't be going through it in the first place. That's why we go through it. So you gotta ask yourself, are you one of those people? Are you one of the person? Or were you one of the people who just believe whatever's being told, therefore you're gonna help push their agenda? Are you pushing the elite's agenda? Because you want to be like everybody else? Because you're so scared that if you don't push it, something might happen to you. And then we're going to go back to this phase that I just talked about. Being fearful makes you irrational. You're not a rational person if you're fearful. You're not. So if you want to get out of this state of mind, I have so many videos about learning to balance your energy centers, meditation. This is how we get out of these state of mind. This is how we get out. We need to heal ourselves because the only way anyone's going to be triggered this way is if they have trauma that has not been healed yet, okay? And a lot of people have a lot of trauma that they have not healed yet. And you got to take accountability for the trauma that you have not healed. And you need to take the steps that it needs to take to heal that trauma so you're not going to be activated by the media. So you're not going to be fearful all the time based on what somebody else said. And you're not going to feel like crap or be depressed because you feel like you have no control over yourself or control over your life because you think the elites control everything because you lost your power and you gave your power away. So get your power back, man. Just do some healing work. Subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mind of Ro, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you could find ways to heal yourself, so you could be a leader. I have a lot of videos on willpower, being one with the universal order and the universal powers. Okay, so check those videos out. I work with the Neteru, I work with the Orishas, I work with the Eshus and the Pampajiras. Get your power back. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope all of you think for yourself tonight. I mean, your whole life, but since you watched this video, I hope you start thinking for yourself tonight. My next video is going to be on how to get monetized on YouTube. So if you want to make money on YouTube, I finally got monetized. Yay me! So I'm going to give you guys advice on if you want to get monetized on YouTube and you want to get paid to run your mouth like me, then I will share that video next week and let you know how I did it so you could do it as well. I hope all of you have a mentally free night. Ankh Uchasaneb. Namaste. Odabo. Peace.